we go again. Put this a little further back. All right, good morning, y'all. Y'all know the routine. Y'all know the routine on my channel. My name's Natasha. Welcome to another live. I'm going to check my sound on my laptop. Sounds like my sound is good. I'm going to turn this camera situation around so that I'm not looking at myself like I'm taking a selfie. I feel kind of hot down here. I'm in the basement. Everybody's sleeping, so I don't want to wake anybody up. How do I do this? Okay, yeah, turn this. Not like that. Sorry, y'all. You would think at this point. I saw somebody do this, and since this is live and I can't edit this video, I saw somebody do this. I thought it was so cute. I mean, I've seen a lot of people do this, where, the first shot, oops, the first shot is a scene of the room or their office chair. And then they just come around and they plop down into the seat. Not like that. And they start talking to you like, you walked into the office before them and now they're sitting at their chair. Actually, my son did that in his video. I can't do it, obviously. So, good morning. That's comic relief for y'all right there. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here and share this live with you because I have read this story so many times. But this time, I just heard something new. And that's what's so wonderful about the Word of God. That's what's so wonderful and why I'm so excited to get up every morning and study. Because it's not like reading a regular book. The Holy Spirit is active and alive in me. And, if you've given your life to Jesus and asked, him to fill you with his Holy Spirit, he's active and alive in you. And as you're reading his word, he's bringing it to life. He's bringing revelation to you. And you just continually see something new. I've heard people who've been studying, the Bible for 20, 30, 40 years say that, they're continually getting something new. And so this is the story of Balaam, who is kind of like a prophet, meaning that he hears from God and he communicates to people who don't hear from God as easily or at all what God is saying about a given situation. But he's a little bit different because he seems like he's a prophet for hire. And so I'm in the book of Numbers right now. So I'm in the part of Israel's story where, God took them to Mount Sinai and explained to them how he wanted them to live. He gave them the law. He gave them specific instructions about, their lifestyle and their feasts and, what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to behave in various situations. He gave them the tabernacle and set that whole system up for the priesthood up. And after he gave them all that they would need in order to, establish society in this land he plans to bring them to. And it's called the Promised Land because he promised to give this land to one of their forefathers, Abraham. And so, now it's time for him to bring them to the land, and he brings them to this promised land. And when they get there, it's not unoccupied. It's not an unoccupied land. Okay, the backstory is, God had seen the people that occupied the land and the way that they lived. and the terrible things that they had done, including child sacrifice in their pagan religions. And he is bringing judgment upon these people, and he's taking their land away from them, okay, in judgment. Independent of Israel, he's judging these people and taking their land away from them, and he's giving the land to Israel. But the instrument he wants to use to judge these people and take their land away from them is Israel. Okay? So they go and they spy out the land, and they come back with this report that yes, it's a good land. It's exactly how God said it was going to be. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. But yo, we saw the people living up in there, and they're like these giants, and we're just regular people. I don't know what God wants us to do, but I don't think we can just take this land. Like, look, these people are like giants. They're like the sons of Anak that they mention, are descendants of people of great stature. So they physically look really big. I think it's an exaggeration. Everybody that they saw wasn't a giant, but they're coming back with a report to persuade the people. I don't think we need to try to come up in here, because I don't think we can take this land. Okay? And so what ends up happening is that they basically tell God, they tell Moses and Aaron, we're not going in. We're not about to do this. And even though Joshua and Caleb tried to convince them, okay, I don't know about our ability, but God has definitely demonstrated that he's strong enough to give us this land. We can go up in there. We're well able to go up in there and take this land because we have God behind us. Remember the Red Sea? You know what I'm saying? Remember all the plagues? Remember what God did to Egypt, the most powerful nation up in here, to deliver us? Surely, if he's telling us to take this promised land, we could do it. But, they had, remember, these people came out of slavery. They had the wrong mentality. They were looking at themselves the wrong way. Okay? And so what ends up happening, a lot of things happen. But one of the things that ends up happening is God saying, okay, you don't want to take this promised land? Okay, you don't have to. I'm not giving it to you. And they said some really harsh things against God. They said that you took Egypt was the bomb, and you took us up out of Egypt to bring us into this wilderness with no water. Have us eating this manna every day. We hate this manna. Basic attitude that they have. Life was better in Egypt. You brought us out here to die. You brought us out here for our sons and daughters to die, and our wives to die by the sword. Instead of, seeing that God heard them crying when they were slaves in Egypt and brought them out to bring them to a good land and to prosper them, and more than that, to have a relationship with them, to be a God to them. But they don't see that. All they see is the obstacle in front of them, and all they see is themselves and what they can do in their own strength and what they can do in their own power. And they've decided that they can't achieve this thing that God wants them to achieve. And so God tells them that, okay, well, you don't think you can do it. I'm not giving it to you now. You're not going in. These two spies, Caleb and Joshua, who see things, who see me and honor me and reverence me and want to obey me, they'll go in. But y'all not going in. Your children will go in, but you ain't going in. In fact, you're going to go back up in this wilderness. You're going to be over here for 40 years until the rest of y'all die out. I'll bring your children in. Okay? And so as I'm reading the book of Numbers, I'm reading the part where they're in the wilderness wandering around for 40 years. Trying to follow the system, the laws, the lifestyle, the structure that God had given them, on Mount Sinai for the promised land. Now they're in the wilderness, trying to, live that out in the wilderness where there's no water, in the wilderness where, they have to eat manna because it's the wilderness. Things are not abundant in the wilderness. God never intended for them to live in the wilderness. He intended for them to take a short journey through the wilderness to get into the promised land where they could flourish. But because they couldn't see God, now they're living in the wilderness, which also, brings them through places that are still inhabited, and it's a lot of them. It's millions of them. And they appear to be a threat to the people around them. So even though they see themselves like grasshoppers, they see themselves as weak, they see themselves as not able to take the land. They see their God as being very distant and unpredictable, baby. Yeah, you're powerful. You did it then, but I don't know if I can trust you to do what I need you to do now. You gave me water then, but now we're at a different place. I don't know if you're going to give me water now. This is the kind of relationship they have with God. And instead of turning to God, they're constantly talking to Moses, who they can see, and through the process that we've come through, by the time I'm getting here to Numbers 20, I'm reading 21 and 22. By the time I'm getting to this story with this donkey, Aaron has died. Miriam has died in the wilderness. Okay. And so, but anyway, check that for me. Because one thing I've noticed, and one thing that I think causes confusion, sometimes the way the stories are laid out in these books, I noticed that it's not always, well, I'm reading the Bible in chronological order, so I'm thinking because I'm coming to this story now and I read about Moses and Aaron's death before, that we're in chronological order. This happened after they died. But I did want to point this out, that I noticed that, it's like a snapshot of this event. And sometimes they might go back to the past and give you a snapshot of something that happened before, and then go back and give you a snapshot of something that happened in the future. And when you're reading, if you are not aware of this in some parts, you might get the story out of order and misunderstand what's going on. But I only said that to say, because I'm saying Moses and Aaron died. Aaron actually died, at the end of the 40-year period, when God is shifting them and is about to bring their children into the promised land. But anyway, as they're moving toward the promised land, as they're moving toward where they're supposed to go, there's people that come against them. First they're moving through the wilderness. They just need to get through Esau's land, okay, his descendants' land, and it's so many of them. They feel threatened by them. They heard the stories of Egypt and what God did, and even though Israel feels like grasshoppers to themselves, the people around them know they're not grasshoppers. The people around them feel threatened by them. The people around them come out to resist them and fight them. The people around them know that God is well able to give them the land, even though they don't know they're well able to give them to take the land. The people around them know that they're blessed of God. The people around them know that there's a God behind them that's working for them, even though these children of Israel don't seem to always know it. Okay? And as I was reading the story, God was talking to me. He was talking to me about that. Just because you don't know and you have a certain perception about where you are and who you are and what your capacity is and who's with you and how far you can go, and it's real to you, you're not making it up. It's logical to you. It lines up with what you can see. When God tells you something, if God said it, you can't go by your senses. You can't make your decision to obey God solely based on what your senses tell you. And that's why I enjoy this story so much. So as they're moving through the wilderness, they come into the territory. They come near the territory of Balak, the king of Moab. Okay. And it describes how he feels about the children of Israel in Numbers. They think they're grasshoppers. Okay. And this is how Balak, an inhabitant of the land, feels about Israel. I'm trying to find this. Numbers chapter 22, verse 2. It says, "Now Balak, the son of Zippor, he's king of the Moabites, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites." So that's another bunch of people. They're trying to go through the land. These Amorites feel threatened. They come up against them with weapons to try to prevent them from coming through. God, they fight with them, take some people captive. Israel prays God, if you get behind us, we will utterly destroy these people. Because they're provoked because some of their people are taken captive. And this is all in Numbers chapter 21. And God gets behind them and they tear the Amorites up. And so Balak hears about this recent victory with God on their side. But that's not all. He knows who they are. He knows all the legends of what God had done to bring them out of Egypt too. That they have a mighty God behind them. So it says, now Balak, that's in verse 2, Numbers 22. Now Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was sick with dread because of the children of Israel. Okay. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this company will lick up everything around them, as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at the time. Then he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, this prophet I mentioned before, which is near the river in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, look, this is how the world views you. This is how the people around Israel is viewing them, even though Israel is viewing themselves like grasshoppers. Look, this is verse 5. Look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth. They look like the sons of Adam. They look like giants. They're looking at you like, oh my God, they're covering the face of the earth. They're like dust that's covering the face of the earth. It's so many of them, okay? They cover the face of the earth and are settling next to me. Therefore, please come at once. Curse this people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So this prophet Balaam, has a reputation of effectiveness. So he's coming to him to try to get him to curse them first. Let's deal with your God first. Let's deal with the supernatural element that's behind these people to make them so successful first. Okay, so their enemies know that there's a powerful supernatural element behind them. They have a powerful God behind them. If we're going to succeed to defeat these people, we need to defeat their God. But Israel doesn't know that they have a powerful God behind them that is going before them to give them the promised land, that they have nothing to fear. Okay, so the story is interesting because they show up to Balaam, the prophet, with money, something to compensate him, to get him to go back to Balak, the king of the Moabites, to curse these people, okay, to curse Israel, to take away their strength so that they can deal with the threat of them coming into their territory, okay. And Balaam is ready to go. Balaam is ready to do this thing. Okay, but God speaks to Balaam. It's very interesting because we know God speaks to Moses. We know God speaks to Aaron. Who is Balaam? Who's this guy? But he has some kind of, interaction. We know that he's been effective in the past. God actually speaks to him and says, don't touch these people. Don't try to curse these people. You can't curse these people because they're blessed. I've blessed them. So you can't curse them because I've blessed them. And he says this in verse 12. Numbers 22 verse 12. It says, and God said to Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Okay, so these Israelites in the wilderness, they have a powerful God behind them. They don't see themselves that way. They're scared of the nations they're coming against, but the nations that are around them are scared of them because they know they have a powerful God, that Israel has a powerful God behind them. They're blessed, but they don't know they're blessed. Okay? So the point of everything that God's been talking to me as I've been reading the story is that what you don't know is hindering you. You think you know what you know, because you're following your senses. But what you don't know will kill you. Don't be so confident in what you think you know. Okay? And so the story goes on to say, God tells them, no, don't go with them. Okay? But Balak doesn't take, the king Balak is confusing because Balak sounds like Balaam. You know what I'm saying? So if I have a slip of the tongue and I say Balak, when I mean to say Balaam, you'll understand. And that's another challenging thing about sometimes reading some of these stories when, it's not, these are not names we're accustomed to saying. And then on top of that, sometimes they sound like one another. Balak is the king of the Moabites. Balaam is this prophet that hears from God. But he got issues. He's got sin in his life. He's kind of motivated by the profit he could make. He can be bought, basically. How much can you trust a prophet who can be bought? Okay? But he does hear from God because he's hearing from God right now. Okay? And so Balaam sends word back to Balak saying, I can't, God told me not to come. I'm not coming. Balak ups the ante, sends more, honorable people, a more magnificent set of messengers with more reward to tempt Balaam, the prophet, knowing that he can be bought, to come anyway. Even though God done told you not to come anyway. Because I can compensate you. Don't you know I can compensate you? Okay? Because I know I need to deal with their God before I can deal with them. Even if they don't know. You know what I'm saying? And so Balaam goes back a second time and prays to God, can I just go? And then God tells them, okay, fine. If they send somebody to you again, you can go, but don't try to speak anything other than what I'm putting in your mouth to say. And we already know God said, this is not going to be about a curse because these people are blessed. I forbid you to curse them. But, go ahead and go with them. And then the story to me can get a little bit comfortable next because it sounds like God is saying, okay, go. And then so he gets on his donkey to go with them. And then in verse 22, it says, then God's anger was roused because he went. Okay? So it's like, wait a minute, you told him to go, so why are you mad that he's going? And I really thought about this, and I realized that God told him, go, but only say what I want you to say. But is Balaam going with that attitude? Or does he think, oh, good, God told me to go. Now I could do what I need to do to get this money. And perhaps in his heart, he's not necessarily going only to say what God tells him to say. And perhaps God, knowing what's in his heart, Could it be that his anger is aroused because he's going, not because he's only just because he's going, but because he's going without the motivation to say only what God tells him to say? But God's going to take care of this. God's going to reveal to Balaam, okay, who's really in charge, and what situation Balaam is really in, and how he's going to need to tread carefully with what he does with this king Balak. Okay? And so it says in verse 22, then the anger of the Lord was aroused because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. And he was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. Okay? Now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with the sword in his hand. Okay? So this is an animal, you guys. And we know the way we think about animals. We don't really think of them as intelligent in the sense of more intelligent than people. Okay? Yet this donkey is able to see the angel of the Lord standing in the way. But Balaam, who is a prophet, whose very office suggests he has the ability to see and hear from God, but for some reason, largely because of the sin that's in his life, he's not able to see that there's an angel of the Lord standing in front of him. You know, and as I was reading this, it's like, what is the attitude of Balaam's heart? He's going with the belief that he still has a possibility to curse these people, even though God told him not to do it. And God has that angel there saying, I'm standing against you to curse these people. You will not curse these people. And this angel will kill you if you curse these people. But he can't see it. He doesn't see that. He doesn't yet understand that he really truly can't go against God in the way he's trying to go against God. But his faithful servant, his donkey, okay, sees it. And again, this is God's mercy. Why let the donkey see it? Let Balaam just die. You know, but God allowed the donkey to see it. And the donkey is ever faithful to his master by trying to go around the angel. So this first time when the angel is standing on the road, you know, there's still an opportunity to go around this angel to avoid getting killed. Okay? So now, okay. And so now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord in verse 23 standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand, and the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. So there's a whole big field now he can go around to avoid the calamity of the angel. So Balaam, who doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know there's an angel. All he knows is his donkey. Why are you off the road? We're trying to get somewhere. Why are you going into the field? So he strikes the donkey to get the donkey back on the road. Okay, so it says, so Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back onto the road. Verse 24, then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyard with a wall on this side and a wall on that side. So the angel moved. And that was interesting to me because all the other times that I've read this story, I don't know, I just remember the angel standing in the middle of the road. I never thought about the fact that the second time when he turned off into the field, the angel moved. So wherever, you know, I'm picturing the donkey trying to get away from the angel moved to block his path again. Okay? And this time there's a wall on one side and a wall on that side. But there was still a little bit of wiggle room to get out of this situation. Okay? Because it says in verse 25, and when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed herself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he's still trying to, God is allowing a way around the angel still. And the donkey is trying to keep his master safe. And is moving around the donkey, is moving around the angel, even, you know, through this tight spot, is getting tighter to avoid judgment for disobedience and going against what God is telling you to do. Only say what I put in your mouth. Don't go up in there and try to curse these people. You can't curse them. They're blessed. He crushes Balaam's foot. Only thing Balaam can understand about the situation he's in is what his senses are telling him. Donkey's getting on his nerves. Now his foot hurts. His foot's been crushed up against this wall. He doesn't see the greater danger of being killed by the sword of the angel that's standing in the way. He's more concerned with his crushed and hurt foot. Okay? But God's still giving him wiggle room around this angel. Okay? And then we move on. Then in verse 26, so he hits the donkey. What is wrong with you? Right? This is his attitude toward the donkey. Verse 26. Then the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And this is my first time reading the story that I understanding the progression of how God works. First, he gives you a warning. You can get around it. Then he tightens it up. You could squeeze around it, but it's going to cost you something. His crushed foot. And finally you get to a situation, because God is long suffering. He's patient. Okay. Now you didn't listen to God the first time. You were able to get around it. The second time, it cost you something. This final time, there's no more wiggle room. You disobey and you're gonna die. Okay. You see the progression of how it is when God is dealing with us, and how it is as God was dealing with this prophet who was trusting only his senses, okay, and operating on his own selfish motivations, okay? And so now there's no other way to go. You're going to die if you keep going forward. You're going to die if you keep moving in this direction, okay? Verse 27 27 says, and when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. So she can't get around him. This donkey is a female donkey. She can't get around him anymore. And so what do? God's telling you to stop. So you stop. So she stops. She lays down under Balaam. Now Balaam is about to loose. Now this donkey's going to lie down, because remember, he doesn't see anything. He doesn't see any kind of danger. Only the donkey is able to see the danger. He's only trusting his senses. So to him, there's nothing in the way. Why are you laying down? Why are you crushing my foot up against this wall when there's a clear path in front of you? Why are you behaving that way? His faithful servant is driving him nuts, because he doesn't see the danger. Okay? To him, there is no danger except this donkey that's not doing what he wants him to do. Okay? And so in verse 27, it says, so Balaam's anger was aroused, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Okay? And in verse 28, it says, then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey. Okay? Now God's making an animal talk, because this animal, who's dumb in the sense that he can't talk, knows more about what's going on than you do. He understands his maker better than you do. He's able to see the angel of the Lord and God's judgment coming better than you do. And you're supposed to be a prophet that has a relationship with God, where you can hear from him and where you can see things from God, but you don't hear and you don't see. And you're tearing this donkey up. And it's not her fault. She sees a danger that you don't see. And she's trying to help you. She's being faithful to you. She's trying to save your life, but you don't see it because you're trusting your senses. And only your natural senses are working. Your spiritual senses are not working. You're not able to see into the spirit realm and understand that you're in danger and that God is dealing with you. Okay? So verse 28 says, then the Lord opened up the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, because you have abused me. I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. So God has shown you mercy in allowing this donkey to see the angel so that you don't die. And the donkey has been trying to warn you, danger, danger, don't go that way, go this way. And instead of receiving God's mercy, and instead of hearing the donkey, now you want to kill the donkey for trying to help you. You want to disobey God so much. You want to do your own thing so much. You want to depend on your own senses and your abilities so much that you want to kill the instrument that God is using to keep you out of danger, because you don't really actually see the danger. Something's wrong with you. You're a prophet who's supposed to be able to see, but you don't see. But here the character of God is revealed. Just go ahead and let him die then. But God's not like that. God's merciful. God's long suffering. God is going to extend his mercy to you to the fullest. Okay? And you're going to have to reject God to the fullest to be condemned. And that's what we see here with Balaam. Okay? And so now a donkey is talking. Like, to me, like, the minute the donkey started talking, I would have been like, wait a minute, my donkey's talking. What's going on here? Something supernatural is going on here. But it's so funny because the story doesn't play out like the minute the donkey started talking, Balaam fell off the donkey and passed out, because why is his donkey talking? It's like Balaam is so far gone, it's almost normal to have a conversation with a donkey. You know, he's telling his donkey, I'm ready to kill you right now. You've worked my nerves so much. Okay? And so in verse 39, it says, so the donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey, on which you have ridden ever since I became yours to this day? Was I ever disposed to do this to you? And he said, no. Okay? So in other words, I'm your servant. I've been with you all of this time. Okay? Have I ever acted this way before? Haven't I always been a good donkey to you? In other words, you should have known that something was off just based on my behavior, based on my reputation, of being faithful to you in the past. But you're so caught up in your senses and what you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel, what you can taste. You're so caught up in that you didn't pause to wonder, wait a minute, why is my good donkey that's always been great to me acting this way? You didn't trust, okay? You didn't trust the dependability of our relationship thus far to be able to tell you, wait a minute, something must be wrong, because my donkey has never acted this way before. This is out of character for my donkey. Something must be wrong. I'm not someone that doesn't understand that things are happening in the spirit realm. I'm not someone that doesn't understand that, I exist. My role as a prophet exists, because it's possible for things to be happening in the spirit realm and for people not to know, not to see, not to understand, not to perceive that these things are happening. But it doesn't make the danger any less real. It doesn't make the threat any less significant. Just because you don't see the sword pointed toward you doesn't mean the sword, because it's a spiritual sword. It's a sword from a spiritual being, that sword won't kill you. Okay? And so now finally, and and this is telling, because this whole story demonstrates that Balaam's ability to hear God and to understand what was going on in the spirit realm is not something that comes in and of himself. It's not something that comes only from him. Okay? The Lord allowed the donkey to see the angel, and in verse 31 it says, now, then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed his head and fell flat on his face. It's God that gives you the ability to see into the spirit realm. It's God that reveals to you the clear and present danger that's moving toward you in the spirit realm. You think you're safe. You think you're dealing with something else. He thought he was dealing with a rebellious donkey. He thought he was dealing with a donkey that didn't know what he was doing and was just going off into left, practically, you know, that expression. The donkey was literally going off into left field somewhere. Okay? Because he was trusting his natural senses and he couldn't see what was going on in the spirit realm. The whole time I was reading this story, you guys, the Lord was speaking to my spirit. What's the Lord? I'm not going to give you an interpretation to this. What is the Lord speaking to your spirit? What relevance does this have to your life today? Look around you. Look around you. Look around you at the things that you used to be, or the people, or whatever, that you used to find dependable before. All of a sudden, these people, these systems, these things are not behaving the way they've been accustomed to behaving before. You're trusting your five senses and you're moving forward. But have you known these systems, these people, to behave this way before? Haven't they been faithful to you before? Haven't they always been walking alongside of you and working with you before? What would make them act up like this now? Is it possible that there is something in the spirit realm, a threat that you cannot see because you are trusting your five senses, but God has allowed them to see in the spirit realm that you can't see? That's a clear and present danger to you. And you're just striking them and beating them and striking them and beating them. You know what I'm saying? And they're moving off to the side and crushing your foot against the wall. Okay? But the danger is becoming more and more and more and more imminent. Has your donkey laid down up under you and now your donkey won't move? And if that's the case, is it possible that the angel of the Lord is standing in front of you with a sword drawn? Stop beating your donkey. As annoying and frustrating and illogical as your donkey's behavior may seem, is it possible that your donkey is trying to save your life? Think about it, guys. If you really think about it, God has put an inherent knowledge inside of you, because he's put this inherent knowledge inside all of us. There's more to us than this body that we can see. There's more going on here than what we can see in the natural. If it wasn't true, people wouldn't be creating religions and having an expectation of things being supernatural and magical. God put this inherent knowledge in us that, you know, there's a reality beyond what we can see and access with our natural senses. We just know this to be true. We can't live with full confidence that we're gonna be okay because we're doing everything that we know how to do in this physical, natural realm that it's easy for us to access with our five senses, while not doing anything to take care of the spirit realm that we also know. And the Bible says that realm is even more real than the realm we're operating in, that we can see, hear, feel, see, and taste. What is that donkey in your life that's sitting up under you, driving you nuts, getting on your last nerve? You're just beating it, and you can't get him to do what you want him to do. I just pray that the Lord would do for you what he did for Balaam. Open up your eyes so that you can see the angel of the Lord in your path, okay? And so it's basically the Lord saying, I spoke to you before. I told you how this thing was going to go down. And I reinforced it with this experience that you're having now with this donkey. And it says, now Balaam is bowed with his head flat on his face, has bowed his head and fallen flat on his face. Verse 32 says, and the angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you, because your way is perverse before me. The opposition that you're receiving from the Lord is because he is not down with your way. You know, I recently did a live where I talked about, can we compromise with God? When God lays out, this is what's right. This is what's true. This is how I want you to live. This is what I consider to be clean. This is what I consider to be unclean. And our culture evolves and changes and modifies their idea of what the culture decides is clean, what the culture decides is unclean. Can we negotiate with God and expect God to compromise the initial standards he gave us, because we now think, okay, that what he once said was unclean is clean? Is God going to be okay with that because we acknowledge he's God? And to a certain extent, we want to follow everything else. We just don't want to follow this point right here. This point right here bothers us. This point right here is inconsistent with our culture. We'll do everything else. We'll just leave this point right here out. Is God going to play ball with us? You know? And you guys can go ahead and watch, you know, that video. But the conclusion that I came up with is, you know, it's, to God, is what he said unclean was unclean the first time is still unclean. And he doesn't make those kind of compromises with us. Okay? He sets the standard, and he has the right to set the standard because he created us. He started this thing. Okay? And so now what ends up happening is, you know, God is saying, I'm standing up against you because what you're planning, what's in your heart to do, your way is perverse. It's twisted before me. And I'm not going to allow it to happen. You will lose your life before you succeed, you know, in what you're trying to do. You're not going to curse Israel because I said they're blessed. And any power you have to bless and to curse comes from me. So if I say no, it's no. No matter how much money you stand to gain from it, no matter what king is making the demand on you, you better be more concerned about obeying me than you are with following some king or any kind of treasure you can get from that king. That's the strong warning God is saying, giving him. And then he reiterates what he said before. Okay, let's continue. It says, verse 33, the donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely I would have also killed you by now and let her live. So the donkey was never in any danger. Okay? These folks that, or this situation, these systems, whatever, that's standing in the way of you doing what you think you're going to do, even though God told you not to move in that direction. Even though God doesn't want you to move in that direction. Even though there's a clear and present danger in that direction. Those people that they were never in danger. You're the one that's in danger. Okay? This little you know, drama has played out to save you, whether you want to take that way out or not. Okay? So I would have killed you and let her live. Verse 34, and Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know you stood in the way against me. Why not? I done told you don't go. I told you don't go with them folk. Don't try to curse Israel. It's not going to work. But in your heart, you thought you were going to go and do your own thing. Okay? Well, I didn't know you were standing against me. Okay? Now, therefore, if it displeases you, I will turn back. Now, I won't go with them no more. I'll go back. If you want me to go back, I'll go back now. Okay? Verse 35 says, Then the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men. And then he reiterates what God has said to him in the first place. Okay? God has said to him in the first place in verse 20, you can go, but if you go, only speak what I speak. So what I tell you to speak. So verse 35 says, Go with the men, but only the word that I speak to you, that you shall speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. Okay? And so God said the same thing again. God didn't change the story. God didn't compromise. God didn't modify anything. Okay? The only way to save your life is complete obedience. But the story gets more interesting. The story takes even more twists and turns, you know. And if you're sitting next to God as his ally, it gets very comical. You know what I'm saying? But I encourage you to go on and read that on your own. But I think it's a powerful warning to us for today. Have you ever seen me act like this before? Was I doing this before? If I'm doing this now, is it possible that what you think you know, what you think you see, what you think you hear, what you think you taste, what you think you feel is off? Because God is merciful. He's extending mercy. He's long-suffering. He's truly patient. He's giving you every opportunity. Don't be so quick to trust your senses and what you think you know and understand in this realm that you can see. But that's all I have for you guys. That's all I have. I'm looking at the chat. And if you're here to say, hey, put something in the chat, I don't see anything in the chat. So, you know, I got to go and start my day. So I would imagine you're going to see it on the replay. I don't have the comments turned on. I don't, as I said before in previous lives, since I started doing these lives, I don't see this as a platform to have a back and forth theological debate or discussion. These are, you know, reflections from time I have in the morning with the Lord. I'm not trying to come on here like I studied and cross-referenced and prepared something and, you know, here it is. And, you know, this is really informal and casual. You know, my aim for this is just to help you to, you know, see an example of someone that's walking out their relationship with the Lord, and to share some thoughts and some ideas with you, just to encourage you that you can go out and do it yourself. You know, that you can have this rich experience with the Lord yourself. And it's just as easy as that. So if you have some strong feelings or some strong thoughts about what I've said, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It makes no difference to me one way or another, but you can express, you know, how you feel and what you think that way, because I will not be having the comments turned on and going back and forth, you know. But it doesn't mean that I don't see you and I don't hear you. But take that to the Lord. Take that to the Lord. I hope you take that, whatever reservations you have, to the Lord in prayer. But that's all I have for you guys this morning. Be blessed, and don't be dizzy as I turn this camera to end this live.